When my coach first showed me this, I did not have a lot of success with it at first. Diving on guillotines, got my guard passed a bunch. I would be on guillotines and not getting finishes, and then I would just like lose their head and have to go back to my normal guard game. It was a lot of time and effort. But before I had a guillotine as a big part of my game, one of the banes of my existence was going against wrestlers. It was like, yeah, jiu-jitsu works against jiu-jitsu guys, but wrestlers would shut down what I was doing, and they would always be on top, so I'd like do my sweep, and they would just stop the sweep, and then I'd still be sitting there on bottom like, man, this is frustrating. It was the guillotine that started giving me a weapon. Now, like, my ideal opponent is a wrestler because they'll put their head underneath my arm more easily than anybody else. And I have a million different tricks for getting this position, for always hopping on the back. So as you guys are experimenting with this, I think you've got a better framework than I did at the beginning, because obviously this stuff has evolved and I've gotten to troubleshoot it to death. But you're gonna have some growing pains with it, but I promise you, keep coming back to this J-hook. Keep taking 5 minutes to drill it before or after class, and it will start showing up, and you'll start getting the correct leg position, you'll start getting a lot of finishes, and then you'll build from there. What we covered today is kind of 50% of like the biggest foundational building blocks I could give you to work on this stuff. The other half is using the guillotine more as a sweep, and I just shot video on all that yesterday, and I will make sure it gets into all of y'all's hands some way, somehow. Just get in touch with me, I'll get it to you guys. So that's kind of the sum total of everything we're gonna talk about technique-wise. If you guys have any questions, now is the time. Anything guillotine related, or even like using the guillotine otherwise. Mary.
Why do you have to choke people?
Why? I mean, I do it because Jeremy got me into this whole grappling thing, and it seemed like a lot of fun, and then I started fighting as an amateur and now a professional, and it seems like one of the nicer ways to beat somebody in a fight.
I want to be a hunter when I grow up.
You're gonna be what?
I want to be a hunter so I can hunt a deer.
I like that.
Yeah. Good stuff.
So you think it's beneficial, like at what point did you say, okay, I'm a guillotine guy, and like, is it beneficial, did you like start training and you say, okay, I'm only hitting guillotines for the next 6 months, or was that like a blue, purple, brown, how did that transpire?
So basically, so for those of you who are not in the armed forces, it's not nice to call a Marine a soldier. And so Jeremy's nickname at the gym was Soldier, and because I was like his little knockoff version, they just called me S2 for second soldier. So my game was basically just his game. And it was, both of us were just doing basically like Jiu-Jitsu 101, right? And I was horrible. Jeremy would make fun of me because he'd be like, all right, so we're in this position, and you just do the natural, intuitive reaction. It was always the opposite of what he wanted me to do. And so for me, grappling at first was literally just being in people's submissions and trying to hold out an extra 2 seconds before I tapped. That's probably the first like 6 months of my journey. Then it was just being able to survive and mount. Then it was being able to escape mount and get back to guard. Then it was being able to launch an attack from guard. And so basically like most of my white belt career was like in closed guard. I would throw up an arm bar, they would escape the arm bar. I would try to triangle them. They would use the triangle to pass. I would let them mount me because I was better at mount escapes. I would get back to half guard, get full guard, and then we'd restart, right? I'd do the whole thing again. And then I got my blue belt. I was taking that a little bit further. I moved out to California. My coach, Brian Harper, was there. And I just watched him. He's not an athletic guy. He was never training hard, so he wasn't in fantastic shape. And he was in a room with some of the best 185 and 205 pound fighters in the world. It was when Dan Henderson was fighting for the world title. And we had a bunch of other UFC and upper echelon fighters there that were big, big, big. So I'd watch Brian roll. He'd arm and guillotine him, flip him onto their back. He'd come up to knee on belly, hit him a couple times. They'd come up on the single. He'd grab the arm and guillotine, flip him to their back. They would just do it over and over. And I was like, this is magical. I'm gonna figure this out. So Brian gave me some time, and I started working on it. And I just, like there and then, I was like, okay, when I go against these high-level MMA guys and these high-level wrestlers, like all of this cauliflower ear that I have is from the Team Quest years. I had a couple All-American wrestlers, and they would just punch me in the ear over and over and over and over. not to be mean, because they like didn't want to hit me in the face. So to like practice, they would just hit me in the ear. So that's how both my ears blew up really bad. And I had to get surgery on one of them and did like self-surgery on the other. So I just had to come up with something to stop them, right? And so it became more and more about me getting to the guillotine, and then I started having success. And then like as a purple belt, it just became like, you know, one of the things that I was doing. I was using it a lot in fights, and it was showing up a lot. I felt really comfortable. And then when I moved out to Las Vegas to train with Robert Drysdale, I was like, oh, if you read Saulo Ribero's book, Jiu-Jitsu University, they say that once you get to brown belt, you know all the jiu-jitsu you're gonna know. So brown belt's the belt of refining. So and they're like, so the test, this is like almost straight out of the book. They're like, the test for you at brown belt is to take whatever move you're good at, and you should be able to walk on the mat and say, Chris, I'm gonna hit guillotines on you today, and then hit guillotines. And I had some amazing training partners in Las Vegas, so I was like, oh, this is gonna be awesome. I have like some of the best in the world. I'm just gonna become amazing at this guillotine. And then there was this little French dude named Bendy Casimir who knee barred me, conservative estimates at 1 million knee bars. And made me realize that like I couldn't just be a one-trick pony. So I actually like started spreading out a lot and diversifying a lot in that time. And I had some other partners that were just murdering me in the gi with like spider guard and stuff. So it was like, this isn't enough. I need to have a good guillotine, but I need to spread out more. So that's when I started developing a lot of my passing and leg locks and all the other stuff that fits in. And then now, you know, in the almost 3 years since I've gotten my black belt, everything for me has been about what I talked about today, like getting to the end, to the finish line, and then being able to safely get in and out all the time. So because I have a school, we have like, you know, 90 adult students or so right now, so I have a lot of different training partners and body types. I'm constantly just stress testing these positions of like how to use them more and more to control everything in the position. Basically to try to get to where Brian was, where it's like with no energy, I can just keep flipping you on your back, pop up to knee on belly. The knee on belly's annoying, so you come up on a single, and then I can jump back on the guillotine. So, you know, everything comes full circle. So there was probably 2 to 3 years in there where I was like really heavy guillotine focused, and a lot of my training sessions revolved around that. You know, whatever move we did in class that day, when we started rolling, I was hunting the guillotine. But, you know, and now it's just become, you know, something I'm known for and everything else. So when I start a match locally, you know, most of the guys know that I like to go for guillotines, and a lot of people, you know, Matt Messer, who's from around this area, he'll like sit there with a guy he doesn't know and tell the guy to watch out for the guillotine before I go for a match with him. I'm like, Matt, man, I'm trying to make a highlight reel, you're screwing this whole thing up.
That sounds like that.
Yeah, exactly. So now guys know, but you know, I've still been successful at implementing that, and you know, like I was telling Chaz, you know, Dave Porter helped me a lot with developing my Darce game further, and the Darce fits in so well with the guillotine, and now a lot of my finishes are coming on what they call the Japanese necktie, but it's all coming off guillotine setups. So because I can get control of your head, I can easily get to the Japanese necktie, and I just know a billion ways to get on that head. So that's kind of the development overall of how I grew through grappling, and then also, you know, how that guillotine sprung up and everything else. Other questions? You guys gotta have something.
Biggest piece of advice for like white belts, blue belts, purple belts for longevity, right? So like end goal or you know, lifetime jiu-jitsu, where you're at right now. If you could tell the white belt Cody,
Yeah.
one biggest piece of advice, what would that be?
So my philosophy, what I tell my students all the time is, so a lot of people think that everything is like A to Z path, right? And you have to go through certain steps in a certain order. And I don't think that's really true. I think especially when you look at fighting or grappling, it's kind of like climbing a mountain. So at the bottom, there's like a million different paths that lead to the top of the mountain, right? And as you get closer and closer up to the top, it starts looking all the same. So whether you want to train at a school whose primary focus is self-defense, or gi grappling, or submission grappling, or MMA, or anything else under the sun, as you're developing, eventually you're going to start pretty much looking the same as everybody at the end. You know what I mean? Somebody who really knows self-defense and can really defend himself in any situation should look pretty similar to somebody who's good at fighting in MMA, and should look pretty similar to somebody who's like an IBJJF world champion. There shouldn't be much difference. So in the beginning, anything you do that when you leave the gym, you want to come back as soon as possible is a good thing. So with my day one guys, if they want to sit there on YouTube and watch worm guard videos, I'm like, have at it, go wild. Or if they just want to sit there and do the same move a million times because they think it's fun, I let them do that. You know what I mean? Like, I think for me, it's constantly a battle for everybody of using martial arts as a tool to express whatever your natural personality is and then develop that personality further. So the day that Jeremy met me, I talked really fast. I was kind of a goofball. I like doing things that like kind of irked people a little bit sometimes just to needle them and get under their skin. And now you sit here and I like stuffing people's hands into their own neck and creating a lot of scrambles and wrist locking people all the time. Like, it's all the same. Everything that you would have said about me when I was 20 years old and I started grappling, I've just amplified that in how I train. And the same way with how I train stand-up and how I fight. Like, I'm not, Jeremy's probably seen me angry like one time in the 12 years we've known each other. So when I fight, you see me smiling, you know what I mean? And I have students that are completely different. I don't have an army of happy-go-lucky, scramble-loving wrist lockers. I have an army of people who are all creating their own version of what martial arts means to them. So I think we all get caught up in like trying to find success examples and then following that path. But I've been very lucky with where I've been to be able to train around a lot of world champions in gi grappling and no gi grappling in Abu Dhabi. You know, Robert Drysdale was the open class champ at Abu Dhabi. The guys I trained with at Checkmat, I was there training 2 or 3 weeks out from Buchecha winning a world title as a brown belt, getting to train with Buchecha. And they all do it differently. They all just, you know, like Buchecha is like this goofy guy who lets blue belts tap him out still. He's always, his whole career, just in the training room, like not cared about the result. And then when he goes out for the competition, he's diving after submissions even when he's losing points. And then he became a black belt world champion doing that. But other guys do it completely differently. Zanji and Salo are such, now that you got the rash going on, you just got me in the zone there. But those guys are such like engineer savants of jiu-jitsu, and they're so meticulous in their details that all their matches become these like very tight-knit battles where one time you rotate your elbow 3 degrees too far and now you've lost. Because Zanji's not going to rotate his elbow wrong. So he got his points, you're not getting yours, that's done. You know what I mean? So it becomes a battle for how to do that. And that's why I love this stuff, is it's like, there's no one right, we can do it a million different ways from now until the end of time. We all get to do it differently. We get to train with people from 5 years old to 60 years old. I mean, that's why I love martial arts. That's why I love training every day. So that's kind of what I talk to my guys about all the time.
Awesome, thanks for sharing that.
Man, you guys are getting really into the philosophical questions.
Oh man, we're deep here.
We're deep here.
We're deep in the burn. That's why your other name's Bubbly, by the way.
Yeah, my second nickname was Bubbly. And then in California I was Chicken Hawk, which I think also fits. And then in Vegas, Evan Dunham called me the Bearded China, which I also like. I've had a lot of good nicknames. Anything else? Anything that we did today that